I'm here with Helena Storm, Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden in Colombia. First, I want to thank you very much for making time for us. I know that the life of an ambassador or any diplomat is very busy, and so it's really an honor to be able to speak to you here briefly. So first of all, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Lauren.
So I want to talk about Colombia and Sweden have a 150-year-old bilateral relationship. It's not often the noisiest relationship. You know, a lot of countries in the news and things like that for sometimes good reasons, sometimes bad reasons. But of course, Sweden has really a strong global reputation for quiet diplomacy and things like that. But tell me, what are the ties that bind Sweden and Colombia, and are there notable examples of collaboration or cooperation going back over the years?
Yes, well, as you pointed out, Sweden and Colombia has very good bilateral relations. And last year we celebrated 150 years of bilateral relations. Obviously, that's 150 years of formal bilateral relations, formal diplomatic relations. Before that, we had relations with Colombia. Peoples to peoples relations and even contacts between the two governments go beyond. Already from the liberation of the country, Sweden was here, we were present. We had a Swedish count fighting with Simon Bolivar to liberate the country. He was then appointed the first governor of Mompox by Simon Bolivar. At this time, we had several important Swedish families migrating to Colombia. One of them very known, and they've been active in many areas of the Colombian society. It's the Familia de Greif. So we have this tradition of peoples to peoples relations. And since I would say maybe 3-4 decades now, we have been very engaged to this Colombian peace process. In all the formal attempts that has been executed, negotiating between different groups and the Colombian government, Sweden has been present supporting in different ways these talks. So a durable peace in Colombia has been part of the main kind of activities that we've had the last decades in Colombia. Yes, so this is it's a strong relation. And we also celebrated the 150-year anniversary with a visit of President Petro to Stockholm, where we signed a joint declaration of bilateral partnership between Sweden and Colombia. And I would say this partnership kind of sets a new scenery for our relations.
Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, there's even a street in Medellin named after de Grief, so you know that I never made the connection until just now. So every day you learn something, as they say. And speaking of President Petro's visit to Stockholm, I want to congratulate you guys. Obviously, you know, me personally being from the U.S., you know, Lockheed Martin was in there, but that's really an impressive accomplishment. You guys beat out lots of different competitors, all of them worthy, of course. You know, all of us are partners with Sweden and with the EU, and you know, we're all allies. But first, congratulations for Sweden and Saab on winning the deal to replace Colombia's fighters that are from the early 70s, the tactical fighter fleet. And so how long have you guys been working on that deal, and how big is that deal? Obviously, people don't realize outside of aviation that there's the price of purchasing the hardware, the aircraft, but there are long-term service contracts that go on for decades after it. It is a whole program. So maybe if you could elaborate on that. And obviously that's a commercial deal, but the way that these things work, it's a hand-in-hand thing with the government and everyone working together. So that's got to be, I'm sure that occupied a lot of your time in the past few years.
Well, thank you for that comment, and obviously we are very happy and proud of the fact that Colombia chose the Swedish company Saab to replace their fighter fleet. These kind of decisions, they are long term, they take a long time to make. So I think actually we have been discussing this with the Colombian government, and Saab has been offering a solution from their company since Santos' time in government. I think that's when they started to look at the at the replacement of this fleet. And this is normal. This is how long time these kind of acquisitions take. And obviously, as you say, we have a great respect for our competitors, that the other countries and companies that were also putting in offers. We are very proud that they chose Saab. And as you pointed out, this is a long-term relationship for us. This is not, we are not looking for clients. We are looking for associates, allies, and friends. And with this kind of agreements, we have the opportunity to reinforce all three of these aspects with Colombia. So right now we are in the process of identifying the details of this agreement.
That's good to hear. And so also, I understand that part of the package, and Sweden has always been, as have your other Nordic neighbors, really involved in social efforts across the globe and have been leaders in that. And I understand that part of this package, you know, fighters are necessary in the real world, but there's also, you know, we always have that perennial conflict of guns or butter, as they say. But I understand that part of this package includes a significant investment and efforts by Sweden in Colombia's Atlantic region, which is a region that suffered a lot of neglect and lack of investment and things like that. And I don't remember the details. Maybe you can fill us in. What's that social part of the commitment that you guys have agreed to?
Well, as you say, these kind of acquisitions are accompanied by an offset program. And the offset program is an agreement to transfer technology and transfer knowledge, so we can multiply actually the investments in Colombia. And it's up to the Colombian government and to the Colombian society to identify in which areas, in which sectors they would like the investments when it comes to technology and transfer of knowledge and technology. As I said, we are in the process of identifying this. Part of the offset program is, as you call it, direct, and part indirect. And the indirect part, that's what you are referring to, I guess, when it comes to the social investments. And this is actually right now being identified and discussed between the Colombian Ministry of Defense and the company Saab.
Great. Besides aviation, besides obviously Saab, besides the Gripens, what are the primary bilateral trade links between Colombia and Sweden? Has there already been a significant amount of ongoing import and export between the two countries in terms of what does Sweden buy from Colombia, and then what products does Sweden export to Colombia? Maybe if you can speak to the trade that has already existed.
Yes, of course. Well, we have had trade between our nations for, over a century. And today, the exports from Colombia to Sweden mainly consists of fruits, flowers, and coffee. And the exports from Sweden to Colombia mainly consists of different pharma products, technology in general, and vehicles and auto parts. And we are actually trying to increase now, together with the Colombian side, the export possibilities from Colombia to Sweden. We just had a delegation of 20 Colombian companies to look at export possibilities in Sweden. I went with them and we visited various actors in Sweden in the first week of June. This was an initiative by my colleague, the Colombian ambassador in Stockholm. We are working very much hand in hand to increase the Colombian exports to Sweden. The numbers are not really showing the reality, because when it comes to the trade, much of the trade goes via another European before it comes to Sweden, or before it exits Sweden, which in the statistics does not show as Swedish imports from Colombia or Swedish exports to Colombia. So that's why I don't go into numbers, but there has been a significant interest from Swedish companies to increase their presence in Colombia. We have right now around give and take 100 Swedish brands and companies in Colombia. They generate more than 25,000 direct jobs. We've also had big investments since I came here. One investment was the company Essity acquiring El Grupo Familia. We have had the inauguration of 3 Ikea stores in Colombia. We also have...
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, by the way. Thank you. A big fan, of course.
Thank you very much. No, but it's an important commitment. We also have the company Celestra, which is owned by a Swedish investment fund that have invested $300 million in 2 solar parks. And they are now discussing another investment in La Guajira. And they have an investment plans for several hundred of millions dollars more up till 2027. And that's in the renewable energy sector. We also have other Swedish companies here, big multinational that every year invests in Colombia to strengthen their position here and strengthen innovation policies that they have here. I was recently in Rio Negro to inaugurate a redistribution center, the second biggest in the world, that the company Essity has, that they just built and inaugurated in Rio Negro. That's also a big investment of at least $35 million. We also invest in waste to energy, in the waste to energy sector, where we are also taking part from the government side, where we, for example, have financed feasibility studies to increase the possibility of investing in this sector for Swedish companies.
That's impressive, and I know about your Rio Negro facility. It's literally just a few minutes away from where I live here in Rio Negro. Yeah, lovely area. I remember just writing the article several years ago when we first heard that IKEA was going to open first in Bogotá and now in Envigado. And just aside from being a journalist, just being personally excited, and so really very happy for you all. I know that is a company of national pride, but then even for us as consumers, so really happy about that. Obviously, renewable energy is a big area, as well as the strategic investments that you've made in companies like the paper companies like Familia, which makes consumer packaged goods and things like that. Beyond commerce, are there bilateral cultural or social initiatives to strengthen the people-to-people ties between the 2 countries? I know sometimes I'll talk to people and it's a little bit different in English compared to Spanish, but I found people get tripped up pronouncing in Spanish, of course, Sweden with Switzerland and things like that. It's like, no, it's a quiet country because they don't get involved they don't make bad news. It's one of those countries that are quietly, and I know you guys are proud of this, but quietly doing good things and have a great reputation. But tell me about some of the people-to-people ties that you have and the initiatives, the bilateral initiatives that you guys have on an ongoing basis with Colombia.
Well, thank you. We have in our embassy here in Bogotá 2 strategies for development cooperation. One bilateral for Colombia and one regional for the whole Latin American region. We manage both of these strategies from the embassy in Colombia. By the way, the Swedish embassy in Colombia is the second biggest in the region after Washington. So it kind of shows how we prioritize Colombia in our bilateral relations. And these 2 development cooperation strategies have priorities. For the Colombia strategy, our priorities is climate change and environment, peace building, and the third priority is democracy, human rights, and gender equality. And these are kind of the 3 main focus for our work when it comes to development cooperation. And we have a number of initiatives that obviously also foster these people-to-people relations, and also working very much hand in hand with the private sector to kind of use the Swedish development cooperation as an engine for economic growth. We have several programs for that. I won't go into detail here, but I could if you want to. We also work with education, vocational training for youth, for women within these programs. And regionally, one program that I want to highlight is our mining program that we promote sustainable mining in the region. And the Colombian chapter of that program was inaugurated or launched a couple of months ago in May. So it's a recent addition to our efforts when it comes to sustainable mining. And in all our programs, we try to always have a gender equality perspective. Because Sweden is a country where we highlight the importance of gender equality in all sectors, in everything that we do. So gender equality is one of these priorities that we've been working on the last 5 years that I've been here, also before, but we've had numerous activities with exhibitions in the Parliament, the Colombian Congress. We will inaugurate one very soon with the mayor's office in Bogotá, where we highlight men's role when it comes to gender equality. Another area where we have strengthened our bilateral relations recently is the cultural area. Sweden has, since I came, been twice partner country for Filbo, 2021 and 2022. We were also the invited country for the Eurocine Festival 2024. We've financed several documentaries that shows the civil society's engagement in peace building and role in the Colombian conflict. We've done that with various of our partners. ICTJ, which is International Center for Transitional Justice, have been one of the partners, UN Women another. We have also strengthened our cooperation through the Philharmonic Orchestra of Bogotá, where we have a Swedish head director, musical director. And this orchestra went to Sweden during my 5 years here. I think it was 2023 or 2022. They traveled the whole orchestra to Sweden to showcase the quality of a Latin American Philharmonic orchestra. And that was a very successful visit. So we are now planning a new visit to the Nordics for this orchestra in 2026. Unfortunately, after I've left, but yeah, maybe it will take place in the autumn 2025. But anyway, these are very important areas of people-to-people relations that we've been working on. We've also brought Swedish artists here, singers, groups. One example that I want to highlight is Jon Henrik Fjällgren, who came and performed during COP16. He is part of the Swedish native population, the Samis, but he was adopted.
Okay, yes.
Was adopted from Colombia, from an indigenous community in Colombia. So he has a double indigenous identity. He was born as an indigenous baby here in Colombia and then adopted by a Sami family in Sweden. And he has been reconnecting with his Colombian roots. And he is a very famous artist in Sweden. And he won our version of Sweden Got Talent. So it's been also a very emotional, I would say, 2 visits that he made to Colombia during my 5 years, and to to see how he have been fostering also a rapprochement between our indigenous groups and how we can engage in further dialogue with them. And foster, further respect for their traditions and cultures.
You bring up an interesting point. A lot of times, I know growing up in the U.S., and I'm from the Midwest, where we do actually have a significant Nordic population, but it's easy to forget how integral to the society is. For some, I don't even know why, but for some reason we tend to remember, the neighbors in Finland, that they have a significant indigenous population, but of course Sweden does as well. I don't know why we unfortunately tend to forget that, but that sounds like an amazing, not just collaboration, but just story, just life history. And that brings me to ask, as during, like you mentioned, your posting is mature here, and will, I'm sure that you'll move on soon. But during your time as ambassador, what accomplishments and activities are you most proud of? When you think, not when you look, your resume, or when you talk to the foreign minister, but when you talk to friends and family, what are you most proud of about, the things that you were able to touch during your time here in Colombia?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, but I'm very proud of the footprint that Sweden has left in Colombia. I'm very proud of that the association many or the majority of the Colombians have when I travel in the territories, because as an ambassador, I've really prioritized traveling in Colombia and visit the territories, and not only working from Bogota.
Mhm.
Colombia is not Bogota. Colombia is an extreme diverse country. And most of the people that I meet in the territories associate Sweden with support for peace building, conflict resolution, human rights, gender equality. And I think we have been able during these 5 years to increase that footprint in Colombia. And I think that's what I'm most proud of. And also, obviously, the 150 years of bilateral relations was a unique moment. We were the first country to support the first verification mission that came to Colombia to support the peace process in 2004, I think it was, with the establishment of MAPUEA, the Organization of American States Verification Mission in Colombia. Sweden was the first country to support financially and politically that they came to Colombia. We created MOE with the actual director of MOE now. MOE is the Observation of Electoral Observation in Colombia. I would say it's NGO in that sense. It's not a governmental organization, but it is the organizations with most respect from all parties when it comes to reliability in election monitoring. We also have supported the territorialization, or the expansion of La Defensoría, which is kind of the ombudsman office in Colombia that was introduced in the 1991 constitution. Ombudsman is actually a Swedish word, so the whole idea of the ombudsman's office it's a Swedish invention, so to speak. And I think the Defensoría is among maybe the Colombian institution, the government institution that with most presence in the territories all over Colombia. And as we know, much of the conflict that still occurs here in Colombia occurs due to the lack of official representation and presence of official institutions around the territory. So that's another example of how we've been working very long term to try to contribute to peace building.
I understand. And you've been very generous with your time. I really am grateful. Last question for you. What will you miss most about your time? Obviously, you may come back to visit, but I mean, as your time here living in Colombia, what will you miss most about it? And maybe what, not so much politically, but really speaking as people, what can the people in the two countries learn from each other?
That's a super difficult question, obviously, because there's so much that I will miss.
Mhm.
Colombia is such a rich country in culture, in history, in nature. I mean, it's just amazing. So obviously, all of that, the strength of the Colombian civil society. I think I've never experienced such a resilience and strength from civil society. Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I was actually this weekend, I was doing kind of my last errands in Bogotá, and I was a bit panicking because I said, oh my God, I have to now buy all the Colombian artisania, as you say it here, that I can fit in my suitcase, because I've since I came, I've been buying handcraft things from all the territories. I always wear Colombian artisania. Today I'm wearing a earring from Chocó, made by a women's organization in Chocó. And you know, this is one small example how you can create conditions to sustain yourself economically and empower women economically around the country. It's just a small example, but I have a huge collection of these. But and I was like, how will I be able to maintain this collection when I travel back to Sweden? So that's one of the things I will miss, really, to travel around the territories, talk to different people, women in these territories, trying to make a living, trying to change, trying to construct a future for themselves and for their communities. Something that I've noted during these 5 years, it's the talent of the Colombian people and the talent of the workforce. It's also one of the explanations why we have such an interest from Swedish companies to come here and to establish here the talent of the Colombian people. And I think when it comes to learning things from each other, I think we Swedes maybe should learn to be a little bit more relaxed, not to plan everything, and that things may turn out great, even though you don't have 100% control over every step and every detail. And maybe Colombians can learn to have a little bit more structure and planning horizon.
That's so funny. My wife always complains that I'm too focused on the clock, and I always complain that she's not focused enough on the clock. And I think that comes from my Midwestern influence, which is largely in the U.S., German and Nordic part of the country. You know, Ohio and Wisconsin and Minnesota and the, you know, northern part and everything like that. So it's funny that you say that, because that's, you know, they say that sometimes the stereotypes are true, and that's one of our big sources of dialogue. I'll say it diplomatically, but
Dialogue, yeah.
but Ambassador, thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor to speak with you. Best of luck on your future postings and the rest of your career. I'll certainly endeavor to stay in touch. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely like to stay in touch and count on us on whatever we can contribute. So thank you so much.
Stay warm back home. Okay.
Thanks. I will try.